So it was stressful because it was the practice that was so necessary for me. Like it was life or death. Really, that's what it felt like. Oh yeah, the biggest relief of it, this craving, was just in an instant. It was just gone. It was gone.
Wow.
It was like it never happened. Yeah, it was like it never been there. It was just completely just back to normal. You could say, like back without this splinter in my head, to borrow the Matrix reference. Yeah. There's no obstacle. There's nothing in the way. There are no veils. There's no. It's never out of reach. I never have to like strain myself. Yeah. And if I don't do anything, that's where I am. So.
Hello and welcome to the Lion Face Guru podcast. I'm Chris, and this is another in a series of interviews with the Mahasiddhas of Amrita Mandala Sangha, those who have reached first stage of Buddhahood, the complete realization of emptiness. Founded by Amrita Baba, we're a relatively small group of a little over 70 practitioners, 14 of whom have reached this realization, there being 6 men and 8 women. So today's guest is Robert Andersson from Sweden, and we will be chatting to him a little about his path, his journey along the way, some of the difficulties and obstacles he's had to face and overcome, from initial awakening to his lived experience of his realization of emptiness. So as I've said before, these terms, Buddhahood, Mahasiddha, enlightenment, they do hold quite a charge to them in today's modern spiritual culture, especially around claims of attainments and this sort of thing. Well, if you find yourself a little bit skeptical about what we say, I think this is an entirely healthy thing. The Buddha himself said not to walk into practices and teachings blindly, but to assess and verify for yourself whether they do indeed do what they say they do, to bring about liberation from dualistic thinking, to bring complete clarity of mind and freedom from self-based suffering. But unfortunately, it's all too often that I've seen people not question their practices, that their practices stagnate and plateau, or quite often I've seen people fall away from the spiritual path. Perhaps they think that they don't have the necessary discipline. Or even worse, I often see people thinking that they're not naturally inclined to meditate, that they're not natural-born meditators. But I don't see them looking at their practices. Practices should bring about fruit. Practices should bring about genuine insight into the nature of our mind. And when this happens, genuine seeing into this true nature brings about a natural ease and a natural flow around meditation. So we do need to bring a critical mind to the path. But paradoxically, we also need to bring that with complete open-mindedness. For without openness, how can we truly ever discover what's possible? If the extraordinary does somehow exist, we would miss it. Our minds would be too narrow to see it. So here, I think, lies the benefit in these interviews. This is still very much a hypothesis for me, whether I can personally make it to Buddhahood with these practices. But when I have a group of friends around me who are very open about talking about their journeys and their practices, their highs and their lows and their difficulties and their challenges that they face, they talk about their raw human experiences. They live ordinary, busy lives with work and families, and they're talking about experiences and insights that are similar to what I'm going through now. And yet they have eventually reached a point where they are talking about this insight of theirs into the realization of emptiness. And they're talking as if they're seeing things from the other side, as if they've overcome this samsaric suffering of theirs. So this is incredibly inspiring to me, and I think it's really beneficial to have people who live in the modern world talking about their lived experience of this insight so that we can all learn from it, so that we can all begin to guide our compass to understand what it is that we're looking for with this practice. Okay, so before we begin, in these interviews, you will hear us talking a lot about the stages of awakening, the supposed opening and perfection of Bhumis. So to help you follow along to understand what we're talking about, I want to briefly try and explain the path map that we use, the 13 Bhumi model. So Bhumi literally means ground of being, and they represent the stages of awakening. And as with the traditional Tibetan model, the first 10 Bhumis contain our karmic imprints. And as we work through the 10 Bhumis by first opening them and then perfecting them, we're stage by stage purifying all of the karmas of our mind. We're seeing things much more clearly. We're working through this fogginess, this distortion that prevents us seeing our true nature as it is. And then once we've completely purified all 10 Bhumis, we have reached this complete realization of emptiness. However, in our path map, this is simply the first stage of Buddhahood, and there is more to do. We have Bhumis 11, 12, and 13, which represent the Sambhogakaya aspect of our Buddha nature, the enjoyment body or the bliss body. And these represent the luminous quality or aliveness aspect of our being, which need a kind of activation or the volume turning up on to fully experience this aspect of our being. So even after perfecting all 13, we still wouldn't consider this the final fruition of the path, the final attainment being known as the full rainbow body, a well-documented phenomena in several traditions such as Taoism, Hinduism, Tibetan Buddhism, certain forms of Christianity. So after complete mind purification and fully realizing this luminous quality of our being, there are still supposedly echo karmas stored within the physical cells within our body that need to be fully released. And this can be realized within the living body and is fully expressed at death through the release of all cells into full spectrum light, known as the full realization of rainbow body. So hopefully this brief explanation helps you follow along with what we're talking about. If you want to learn a bit more about our path map, the 13 Bhumi model, you can look at amritamandala.com in the teaching section. So with that being said, let's get on with the interview and meet Robert. And if you do think these interviews are beneficial and will benefit others, then please help us by liking and subscribing. So now let me introduce Robert Andersson. Robert Andersson comes from Sweden and he's a family man. He has 2 children and from all sounds of things, he was quite a busy guy whilst he was doing his practices. One thing that was very interesting to me about his path, if we can compare it to some other people, you had periods where it was taking a very long time and then your Bhumi openings maybe take a few years. But then your last period of the path, you seemed incredibly determined and you went through the perfections really quickly. Robert also went through some seemingly very difficult times, which perhaps we'll talk about a little bit, and had some great challenges to overcome. So interested to hear about how he overcame those, see if we can get some information about what his practices were and what his mindset was. And it's been great to follow along Robert's journey. We haven't had too much interaction, but maybe more recently we've had a few email exchanges. I've never met Robert in person, but we've had a little chat recently over the phone to try and get to know each other a little bit. And so welcome, Robert, to the Lion Face Guru podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chris. Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be getting to know you. Yeah.
And pleasure to get to know you. So the first question is just to try and get an understanding of what really drew you to the path in the first place, and the path in general, but also the path of Amrita Mandala Sangha.
Okay, yeah. It's a lot of things. That's a really complex web of different circumstances and things that so when I tap into that time period, let's call it like that, there was a lot of things going on in me, but I think my spiritual journey started when my inquiries into the science, the natural sciences. I was looking a lot at the natural sciences to get answers, like what's going on here? What's the deal? What's the deal with this life thing? Like what is how can I make sense of it? Like I was confused, and I didn't like that, and I really couldn't focus on anything else. Like I spent a lot of my free time learning all of the most updated stuff, what the natural sciences were saying about how everything fit together and all that. I was really hungry for knowledge, and I thought that like if I just kept looking into that, sooner or later I'd settle for an explanation and kind of like be done with that. But at some point I just realized that it's not going to cut it. Like no matter how much data I get, and like how I kind of at the same time sort of started feeling like these people that were representing that area were not asking the same questions that I were asking. They were like really focused in fields, but they were trying to build like a bigger picture, but nobody was like really interested in the same sort of thing that I was. Like I wanted to stop being so frustrated, to know my place in this life that I was in. So and I didn't get those answers from there. So I kind of sooner or later I kind of got done with that. I can't remember exactly how it crossed over into looking into like other areas of knowledge, like for example the ancient wisdom teachings. But somehow I got really interested in Buddhism because I think probably it appealed to me because it was this it was a methodology more than anything else. Big, having been so much into the natural sciences, I was quite not spiritual, like in my approach. Yeah, I definitely didn't have anything like that. Like when I was even younger, I kind of refused spirituality and didn't like believe that it was a. I thought it was all. Yeah, I thought they were all fools doing that kind of really like there was no substance there and I couldn't understand it. But then Buddhism looked like a sober kind of method for working with myself and sort of revealing the answers that I was looking for myself. So I started looking into that and to tell you the truth, it like I was at my workplace. I was like a computer technician, so I had a lot of screen time, and whenever there was a moment that I could not be solving some kind of task at work, I would be Googling, I would be looking at Wikipedia. When I got home, I was reading Buddhist stuff. Yeah, but like I was not reading the heavy literature. I hadn't gone that far. I was reading all the shallow stuff, like what is Buddhism, and I was spending a lot of time on Wikipedia, just going from article to article. I learned about the rainbow body, which got me super hooked. Like,
did you? Oh, right.
Yeah.
But what time period is this? How old were you, or how long
So
ago was
must have
this?
been. So let's see. I was probably looking for a good couple of years before I hit something before I actually started practicing, because I knew at the time I knew what I was doing. I was looking for information before I started to practice. Like I wanted to know exactly what I was going to do before I started spending time, like sitting or meditating or something. Like I needed to be sure it was going to take me like to the end point, because I didn't want to be beating around the bush with this. Like because but it was so tricky. There was so much vernacular. There was so much like everything was so wrapped up in. It was like philosophy mixed with life, like how you should live your life, lifestyle choices, and with like morals, ethics mixed in with anyone familiar with Buddhism will probably know what I'm talking about. That it's a big field, like it's a big field, especially for someone who wasn't familiar with that before. But eventually it kind of narrowed down to, I kind of saw that there was this rainbow body phenomenon. And okay, so you were asking me when this was. So this must have been about 2010, maybe something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
A while ago then.
Sure. Yeah. So now it's 22, and for anyone watching in the future, yeah. But so it was a couple of years, and then finally I kind of narrowed in on Tibetan Buddhism just because of the rainbow body phenomenon, because that seemed legit. Like that was like, okay, that's something, you could touch that in a way. And I kind of like intuitively sort of immediately believed in it. like thought, yeah, sure. I mean,
All right.
like why not or something, which was kind of strange for me because that was not in my character to kind of jump on that kind of mystical. I think something so mystical would be real, but um, but I did. So I started with Tibetan Buddhism, and then I spent even more time just looking into, especially Tibetan Buddhism, and learning all about that. And that's another really big field in itself. so, but eventually, it came to the point where I knew that the pinnacle teachings were Hatha Yoga and Dzogchen, and that was
Okay.
Dzogchen was what I needed to get. So I kind of understood that. Like, I need to understand Dzogchen. I need to
Mm.
learn it and do it
Mm.
and get on with it. Like so that was a long and tedious process. I spent a lot of time searching uh, and investigating into that
Mm.
field. But at the same time, I kind of had my like eyes and ears open for other ideas too. And in 2014, I came across a method of self-inquiry that actually goes to the heart of self-inquiry. It's actually the essence of self-inquiry in a really neat package. And I awoke from that. I was lying in my bathtub. I was listening to to some kind of it was a retreat video. They don't do retreats anymore, but back then there were retreats, and I think it was the second video that I watched. They were like an hour
Mm-hmm.
long, and the second one I watched, um, it was described exactly how to perform this self-inquiry method, and I did it, and I knew it instantly that wow, like I hit this was home, like I hit it, like I that
Oh,
was the
amazing.
that was the head on the nail, yeah, the
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
yeah.
What were they
So,
called? I remember you said the other day, but I forgot their name.
oh yes, just that the method is called just one look method. And then,
Mm-hmm.
yes, no, just one look is a project, and they're still going on. Their goal is to get this method out to as many people as possible. So if anybody's inclined to check that out, I highly recommend it. Whether you're on a spiritual path or not, or whether you're
Mm-hmm.
enlightened or not, I think I think any person who finds themselves in a human body should at least
Mm-hmm.
give it a glance and
This is an important point to make, and at this point, perhaps, is I've heard people say that like we sort of say talk about the two-part formula method in our
yeah,
sangha as
right.
this works really well. You need to do this. Come on, everyone needs to come and awaken with this formula, but we're not dogmatic with it. It's we've got quite a
Mm.
few people in our sangha who've woken up via other methods. This
Yes,
is
could you point
we're
that
very
out? Yeah.
pragmatic. It's like whatever
Mhm.
works for you. Two-part formula method happens to be very effective, and sounds like
Wait,
you think this one is as well.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, yes. I am two-part formula is um, I didn't wake with it, but I've been using it a lot in my
Oh yeah.
Vipassana practice. Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I've been using it. So I think it's just absolutely, it's
Yeah,
genius.
yeah.
It's
It's kind of a
fantastic.
critical skill to know, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And actually, in fact, I'd gone before I learned it and started using it. I went pretty far on the path on the
Oh,
Bhumi
did you?
before I
Oh, right.
started using that method. Yeah, and then when I did, it's like, duh, like, why didn't I just, you know, begin at the beginning, But that event kind of I became a pretty happy camper like after
Mm,
having uh, seen myself for like mm, had that insight,
mm,
which
mm.
was so important. So I could have probably gone on with my life and just kept doing my work and yeah, trying to help people in other ways. But it was definitely, yeah, it was probably rainbow body. And yes, and when I say help people in other ways, I definitely recall now that I had a very deep yearning, like that everybody would, because like going around having like call it woken up, or like having upgraded myself in some kind of way, the perspective, like I have a shift in perspective, and then like going around in your old environment and everything kind of looks different, but you sort of still feel the ache and pain of everybody else. Like, but you kind of want to, you want others to have that too. It's just it's a very fundamental, I think, feeling that you just want other people to experience what you're experiencing if you're having a good time. And so you want to share that. So it was definitely that too. Like I had a feeling that I wanted to make myself like the best carrier for this interest. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So I thought that maybe Buddhism would help me perfect like my character, or not my. Well, I didn't know what it would perfect, but I thought it would help me in whatever it was that I was wanted to do, for the benefit of other people, especially people. So going into like how Amrita Mandala I finally found in 20 late middle of 2016. I found I've sent my first email to Amrita Baba, and it was I had found some YouTube video of him doing Hatha yoga.
Oh, right.
And this was precisely what I wanted to find. So and I'd been doing it for a couple of weeks, or maybe like 2 months probably. Some Hatha yoga meditations, and I noticed that things were happening, like shifts were happening. Like, holy crap! I think like I couldn't believe it. Like I thought, oh my, did I find like a real Buddhist practice right now? Like, is this is the real McCoy? Like, oh, folks, like, okay, not bad. But yeah, but it took a while before I sent him an email. So, but then finally I did, and I remember being having such an attitude and being super cocky and just being oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You go ahead and ask him. I wouldn't mind if there's more truth about that. Yeah, yeah. Like so tell me right now, like how do I get rainbow body? Just
Right.
yeah. And like what's the meaning? What's the point of it? And like yeah. So hopefully I softened up a little bit since then, but that's where it began. So yeah. Not that much longer. I maybe a year later or something. I got the empowerment, my first empowerment.
Cool.
Before that, I was doing Hatha yoga, and I was doing Guru yoga mainly before that, and I had some shifts. I was probably a year later. I probably had 6 or 7 Bhumis open.
Okay.
And then I got the empowerment.
Oh wow! So you opened a fair few before you had an empowerment. So through simply doing the Hatha yoga with Guru yoga, I'm guessing you did Magic Electron back in those days.
Yes, Magic Labdron, as well as Guru Rinpoche. Yes.
Oh yeah. And then you got the empowerment. And just thinking about your timescale, you seem to really slow down after that. Because it took you quite a long time. Say a long time compared to how you finished anyway. Still probably relatively average among our Sangha, and how quick you opened all the Bhumis over 3 or 4 years or something. 3 years.
Yeah, I think the 13th Bhumi opened in 2019. So we're looking at like first opening was in 2014, but then it took a couple of years before I opened, maybe 2 and 3. And when I got in touch with Amrita Baba, I was at 3 open, and that was in like autumn of 2016, and then in the spring of 2019, I remember that moment. I remember clearly when my 13th Bhumi opened. Yes. So that was the opening part of it all. Yeah, but it slowed down the even though I got the empowerment, my progress slowed down pretty rapidly because I hit some obstacles. Like
Hmm.
I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I got quite ill. Like I started doing the practice and things were going well. And I was at uni at the time, and I had things going on there which was stressful, and it all just culminated in a like collapse mentally. Like I got I got I began hallucinating a lot and seeing connections and believing conspiracies and things like this. I
Yeah,
would
yeah,
shut myself off and put earplugs in with like big phones on with just noise, and I would walk around like that, like cancel out every sound that I get. It was a really difficult time, uh, and I like would feel how my negativity was affecting my surrounding fellow
mm,
people and everything. And so I was really stressed out. Like I ended up going to a cabin for a long time and spending a couple of months anyway. I was in just just locked away in a cabin trying to avoid everything and
all right.
trying to get a grip of myself. And
Mm,
yeah, yeah. So that was a long period where my progress really stagnated and I plateaued totally, and I was just stuck in this uh, hell. I couldn't. There's no reason to sugarcoat it. Yeah, it was terrible. Um, so, I might as well tell you how I got out, like
yeah, yeah.
how I got away from that.
So it
uh,
sounds like you had a few protective mechanisms going on. You had your earphones and you were
yeah.
getting away from everything as well. But this
Mhm.
is, it sounds like it might have been pretty painful to you because you wanted to go out and help people and you wanted to go to the dark places and
Uh,
people who are having a difficult time and help them. But then you're having such a difficult time now.
yes, yeah, very accurate. Yes, exactly. That was wow. Yeah, could have said it better myself. I didn't even remember that. But yeah, exactly.
Mm,
I was so that was a big pain as well. That like the failure of my project, like
yeah, yeah.
for sure. Yeah, I had that haunting me too. Yeah, just didn't have so much time to pay attention to that because of all the weird shit going on. So mm, definitely, it was a big blow. Definitely to just realize that you're not invincible. Like when you think you're kind of
Yeah, yeah.
immortal and then, but then you aren't. Kind of it's like it's in like that movie when the god gets if he thinks he's a god and he gets this spear like through his ear or something and he just starts
Right, yeah.
bleeding like oh he just his world collapses like sort of yeah. And that at some point I started feeling good well enough to actually get practicing again. I started sitting again and I like got back into the routine and the mindset of practice.
Hmm.
And then I had suddenly I had my first Bhumi perfection. And
Mm, mm.
yeah, and I realized that oh my, like in that moment it was like so clear. Oh, like if I can do this, like if I can perfect this Bhumi here now, if I already perfected one, like why couldn't I opened all of them, so why couldn't I?
Oh, really? All right.
Yeah, like why couldn't I
Ah.
perfect all of them? Like of course I can, and then I'd probably be all this would probably be gone by the time that I'm done. So that's when this the final year that you talked about, that was quite kind of quick for me. That's when I put my mind to that, and I
Yeah,
went
yeah.
for it. And yeah, so yeah, so that's
So
how I got out.
I didn't mention that you were sort of in the first bunch that uh, achieved this realization of emptiness. I think you were very inspired by. You obviously saw Bubba achieve it, and then um, Villa,
Yes,
and you saw that this is possible now.
exactly. Yeah, Baba did it. first, and that was amazing. But he's always been light years ahead, so I kind of like, okay, it's doable. Like, but it's
But Bubba's
probably pretty far ahead.
Bubba.
But yeah, exactly. So, but then Ville came along, and he was the second guy who pulled it off. So, and I was like, okay, cool. Like, it kind of sank in that maybe this is actually possible. Me too. And then a couple of months went on, and I think it was Shane who was the third one, but he didn't say anything. He just wrote something cryptic. But I read between the lines and kind of, all right, man, you
Yeah.
okay. So, um, yeah, and then by that time it was just about a month left or something for me to finish off the first 10 Bhumis. So, but yeah, so that's how it went.
So perhaps I'll take this opportunity now to ask. So I think it's a nice insight into your mindset at the beginning. You'd obviously gone through this really difficult patch, and then you perfected the first, and you're like, oh, okay, well, if I can perfect the first, I could perfect the rest of them. But was there any change in your practice at the time? I think you've mentioned to the Sangha that you did change it a little bit. I was quite interested to hear about it.
Yes. I was never strict with routines and sitting down in a like proper organized fashion. I just took my practice wherever I went. Always, always practice. Always my mind on.
And you're working quite a lot. You've got a family, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I just got to find the small the little breaks, and everywhere. Take every opportunity, and yeah, I think what changed in my practice is probably that the pace at which I switched routine got faster. I can just generally say that for me, practice is just all about learning, like all the time, learning. Like, how can I get it better? How can I, like, if I combine this with that, like, what happens then? How is that effective? Like, always listening to the mind, feeling how the practice is affecting me, and making small adjustments and focusing on what's working, and then like after, so I find some practice that I liked really much. Like, it could be guru yoga or something. It could be okay. So if I do the guru mantra and then end it with pets, or let's say let's say I just realize, oh, that worked really well, and then I'd stick to that for a couple of days or maybe a week or something, and then it would just pop into my head something like how I could change it or whatever. I just have an idea, and I just see, oh, that was even better, and then it would evolve. So all the time the practice evolves, and especially in the last year, it evolved more and more rapidly. I'd say that was the biggest change, like the pace at which this switching of practices was happening. So yeah, but to give you like probably a bone, like what I was doing, a lot of guru yoga, a lot of it. Yes, guru yoga, mainly guru yoga, and towards the end, more sitting, just Hatha yoga towards the end. Yes, definitely.
So when you talk about Hatha yoga, are you talking about you would do the guru yoga and then sit in Hatha yoga for a long time after, or are you talking about?
I would probably just ask a blessing for sitting. I would just
okay.
Yeah. I would just find rest and ask for a blessing and just remain. Yeah. Try and rest.
A few pets.
Definitely could use pets. Yes.
So let me just butt in here to try and describe what we're talking about. Pet is a single syllable that we can use to shout in short, sharp bursts to try and clear our mind whilst we're meditating. Known as a seed syllable, It represents cutting through obscuration or cutting through to the nature of our mind. And when our mind gets distracted, perhaps by thoughts or perhaps by fogginess, we can use these short, sharp shouts to cut through and reveal the nature of our mind to help gain clarity again, so that we can rest in it, so that we can soak and marinate in our true nature.
And another detail, like of my practice, that I think is sort of interesting is that because I have this family life always buzzing around me, there is a little room for me to use like loud mantras. I can rarely pronounce them loudly. I mean, if I'm putting my kids to sleep, I might sing a few mantras for them, but but like for my own practice, it's been way more practical to, like, because I do it on my commute, or I do it in the lunchroom at the office, or I do it, you know. So I'd keep it in my. I would be silent and do it. Even pets work like that. Not as well, but they get the job done, definitely. So yeah.
I found something similar because my life suddenly is quite busy, and I'm in a shared house, and so in the shared house it's difficult to shout. But I think once you're on the perfections, I'm sensing for myself that you don't need as many shouts, or you can do the shouts in your mind, or even just with your body. So you shout, pet, pet, you might whisper it or something.
Yes.
But that
exactly.
that there's an effectiveness to that. You notice that effectiveness.
Oh yes. It's just get it done. That's really that's the bottom line of it. Whether you do it sitting, standing, lying down on your head, just get it done, like silently, loudly. Maybe if you do it loudly, you might end up needing a few less shouts than if you do it silent. I don't know. I'm just guessing, but because it feels like, like especially the cutting, like it's really effective to do shouting for cutting. But and the perfections, you don't have the same. It's not as necessary to cut in the same way. Yeah, you're kind of already in the right environment. So you just need to. It's a matter of just paying attention to the Buddha body. The natural state is the cure. Anyway, it was the cure for me. The natural state is what takes you home. So, yeah.
Finding ways to get into the natural state.
Yes.
And very intuitively, it sounds like.
Yes. In my case, very intuitively, and then you never know when a video is gonna pop up, and I'd watch whenever something was posted, I watch it, and all that was written in the Sangha page and Facebook, I would read it, and all that gives you inspiration, and sort of every once in a while you hear something new that you hadn't really thought about it in that way before, and that kind of pushes you a little bit further. And kind of builds up, but it's very, very much guided. But I think we're different. I think people are. This is like all that I'm telling you is kind of idiosyncratic. I think for my side, I think personalities are really different. The way our mind like function, or shouldn't say mind, but psychology functions is, and personality, how we function, I think is really different. Some people are more intuitive, and some people are more like logical, I think, or like follow another kind of pattern.
Because this is kind of an exploration for the whole, has been an exploration for the whole Sangha still. And I think by the time you reached emptiness, it was thought in our Sangha that obviously the later Bhumis take much longer, and there were people who had been in the 10th for a year, 2 years, or well, maybe not 2 years, but over a year, and then you come along and slip straight through it.
Oh yeah. So that was it. Yeah, both Helena and I, we were at similar stages at that time. It was a couple of months where both of us finished 10, and then the 11th, 12th, and 13th consecutively. Well, actually, for me, they went 11 first, then it was 13, and then lastly 12. And 12 was the most, took the most effort. But yeah, but by that time we had pretty good tools for doing that. So that's probably why it went so quickly. It was a couple of months to finish those three off. Probably 1 month each for those movies. That's about.
Well, yeah. So one other last question about your practice. You said you were doing guru yoga mainly. Did you not do so much rainbow body yoga? Okay.
I'd refrain from saying that I didn't do rainbow body yoga because I used all the tools of that package.
Oh,
really.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
It's got everything in there, isn't it?
It does, and I didn't. Yes, but it's correct in a way that I didn't use deities as much. Not as much as guru. I used to definitely relied on guru more than deities in the time period between first and 10th perfection of Bhumis. Yes, I did. But that was just a personal preference. I think I think for somebody else it might work even better with deities. So it's and I'm not sure. I'm not even sure what led me to that decision. Yeah, like we talked about it, it was a very intuitive process, and I kind of went with my gut on things and never really thought twice about it. Yeah.
So what was this final stage of 10th like? If we sort of are going from 10th to 11th, perfecting 10th and then into 11th.
Oh, like that.
I guess, what were your final experiences of 10th like?
Oh, it was stressful. It was really stressful.
Was it?
Yeah. I was in a hurry to, like, like we talked about. I was quite sick. So it was stressful because it was the practice that was so necessary for me. Like it was life or death. Really, that's what it felt like. I mean, so and that was taking up so much attention from me that I needed to go to other worldly things. Like I needed to focus more on my worldly life. Call it world. I mean, that's a little. It's almost down-putting to call my family worldly matters, but yeah. It's it depends on your perspective. Like if you're old school, like yogi style, you probably have that kind of vocabulary, but
you still have a life to live.
Definitely, yeah.
You're
That's
still a lay person and a job and a family.
Definitely. Yeah. So I was kind of in a rush for a lot of it for their sake, because they weren't happy, of course, with my absence and my constant attention fluctuating toward for this practice. So I kind of needed to get it done. So I was really stressed out. Like I didn't pay a lot of attention to how I felt like or what's this stage like and trying to describe what I was seeing because I knew I wasn't done yet. So what doesn't matter? Like it's gonna pass. And to tell you the truth, like in the last years that had been, like I had so many experiences of this and that and highs and lows, and it's just a pit of like experience, like so much, really, like yeah. So it kind of I was kind of fed up thinking about like how I feel about things. Like I thought enough about that. But in fact, like it was, but it was perfecting 10 was the biggest relief, like by far the biggest. Oh yeah, the biggest relief of it was to be was to this this craving was just in an instant. It was just gone. It was gone. Like it was like
wow.
It was like it never happened. Yeah, it was like it never been there. It was just completely. Yeah, I was just back to normal. You could say like back without this splinter in my head, to borrow the
Ooh,
Matrix reference. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Without that, like it was just okay. So now what? Like, it's like
Well,
yeah,
Oogie said a sharp stone in a shoe. You say a splinter in the
yeah,
head.
yeah,
That sounds a bit more dramatic.
yeah.
For me to get my head around this, I think you're one of the first person I connected to about reaching Buddhahood and trying to understand, like, what was your motivation to go through so quickly, but to understand that you've been through such difficulties, such turmoil along the path, and then to understand that when you get to the end of 10th and there's that relief, now
Mm,
you're in emptiness and you're not stuck in that splinter in your head that you're talking about.
mm,
It's not there anymore, but you're not raveled up in it. That's really
yeah.
fascinating to think about and to hear. And if I'm coming at it from my point of view and I'm still having doubts about whether this path is possible, but then I hear such a down-to-earth experience of the path and you talking about now the other side, the other
Mm.
side, as it were, it's very inspiring.
Oh, good to hear. Oh, great, great. Yeah, it's if you look around, like people have all kinds of spectacular fantasies about what
Yeah.
this uh, attainment would uh, bring with it,
Mm, mm.
and and of course I carry those too. Like but they're in fact I find I've now they're an obstacle to me. That's what I totally see them as an.
Mm,
That's it. That's rib. It's quite problematic that people have these ideas
mm, mm.
about what it is, and there's too. And I think even the ancient guys, they kind of in a way they frame it like something really spectacular, and it is. I mean, in a way it is, but it's spectacular in a poetic way. Like it's not
Mm.
literally like that. Like literally, like if I told my spouse this, because she kind of asked what it was like, and I said like very mundane, like it's like walking up some stairs and then you get to the top, and you're yeah, and then you're there. It's like it's no, there's nothing else that happens. Like you just happen to be at the top of this stairwell. Like it's just not it's not dramatic.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
there's some other things that came with it that were important for me. Like for example, knowing that I wouldn't be uh, going down again, like that. For example, that's a huge relief. But
Mm, mm.
that's more of a like that's a narrative, right? I have a narrative
Yeah, yeah.
that I'm afraid that I might go down, and that narrative changes with this new perspective that I see that I'm not gonna fall down the stairs again,
Mm,
no matter
mm.
what happens. So uh, you would call it a relief, but not. But I don't see it as a relief because that's just my internal dialogue developing. Relief for me is when attention relaxes, and that's a relief. So it's not really like that. It's not, but it's a relief in the storyline of
Yeah.
who I am.
Did did
Yeah,
did you find there was a relief in the body though? Was there
at
a
10, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, a little bit, but there's been more relief in the body after that,
Oh,
I'd
is
say.
there?
That was
Do
all
you
right.
find there's sort of an adaptation period, as it were, a period where there's this momentum of the energies and
Hmm.
the old habits, etc., the thought patterns, in a sense that they carry on a little bit for a little while, whilst this emptiness realization has occurred, and then they calm down.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Mm,
It's, that's a that's apt. Yeah, but it's I remember reflecting on this that it was like any perfection had been. It was like most perfections
mm.
had felt. It was felt just the same way. It's
Oh,
just that
really?
now there aren't anymore. It's like they're very consecutive. Like they have this very sort of this tone to them, very distinct tone. And a perfection had, for me, had all of them had the events had were very similar in how I experienced the events.
Mm.
So, and this was just another one of them. It was like, okay, so now it's now it's time for 10. So and then boom, it went, and it's like, okay, then there it happened. There it went. I We were having discussions like in the forum and in Facebook and stuff with people that were going through this, and some other folks, members of Sangha. They had a lot of like towards the end, it was a lot of like popping in and out of the
Cessations.
cessations. Yes, cessations. And I never had that.
Oh,
I
right.
had yes. Well, I did have cessations, but they were quite early. They were earlier on. Between 9 and 10, there were no. I didn't have cessations.
Oh, right. Interesting.
Yeah, when 8 perfected, I had probably the most profound cessation that I had on the path up until then. That lasted for a couple of minutes, probably like 5 minutes, and I was so disappointed when that was gone. When it was gone back again, and like,
Yeah.
could you just spin a little bit longer or something? And I wasn't really aware of this phenomenon, or call it so. And I just got so excited about it that I didn't really give it my reflections or anything. I just, what do I do now? Like, wow, how cool! Like, how should I spend these moments? Like, yeah, 2 minutes into it, I had a work phone call coming in. I just had to take this work phone call.
Oh, did you?
So yes, I spent more than half my session in a phone call for work. So dull, but yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, exactly.
It's quite interesting, yeah, to compare to some of the others where they've had 5-day cessations. So
Yeah,
and you had 5 minutes.
yeah, I had 5 minutes, and then it was just over. And then when 10 perfected, there was just no doubt. I had no doubt. Like,
Oh,
it
really?
was, yeah, there was no doubt. It was just okay. It was just like the other uh, perfections had been, like, also without a doubt. It was like, okay, so that perfected. Just
Oh, okay.
logic. Like, okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah. So is there any way to try and describe the difference between reality as you're perfecting 10th and then reality as you come into?
yeah, well, it's tricky because
Yeah.
thing is, like, whatever I say might mislead you, or like might give you ideas that just are not useful. They're just not. Uh, they're not. It's not going to help anybody and it's not going to be accurate either. Like, it's not going to be.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to portray that. The best way that I can describe the experience is probably that it's normal. Like, it's so normal. It's just like, like it always should have been. Like,
Okay.
I think, yeah, because I had like about a week later, I had a call with Baba to talk about it and to, like, check in and everything,
Yeah.
and then I told him that it just feels so normal, and I think it was he that said, yeah, like it always should have been, right? And I was like, yeah,
Okay.
totally.
Yeah.
Like, this is
Yeah.
how it was. This is how it was from the beginning. This is like you know, everything else. It's everything else that's weird. Like, it's it's not being like this that's strange. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
the anomaly. That's the anomaly. Like, being like this is how everybody should be. This is right. It's just right. Yeah. Yeah. Of course, life still has its problems and everything, but this is by far the most effective way to. It's a wonderful way to work with those problems. Yeah, from this point of view. Yeah.
Is there a sense of reflecting on something else Baba said, of this being almost reborn in a way? There's something about this which is restarting life. You've got a fresh palette or something.
Yeah, sure, definitely. Yeah, yeah, I agree. I mean, I celebrate this as my no rebirth day. Like, the anniversary day. Yeah, it's my no rebirth day. Yeah.
Wasn't it? I didn't mention that it was just a little over a year ago that you realized
Yes,
emptiness.
that's correct. It's about 13 months. Yeah. So
you've had a year to digest this.
yeah, and here's the thing, like about digesting it. Like
Mm.
I've noticed that it takes a long time for like the neurochemistry to adapt to this realization. Like it's like having new information, and now
Yeah, yeah.
the whole my whole body and every chemical in my body needs to adapt to this new environment. Yeah, I guess the realization that all is good, it's all good. So now that all is good, the body doesn't need to like like ramp up and
Yeah, yeah.
uh, push everything out. So for me, that's it's a paradigm shift. So it's a paradigm shift for the physiology. So now that the CPU is like making the calculations more or less accurately, like correctly, like they were, it feels
Okay.
like they weren't making them correctly before, but now they're like
Yeah, yeah.
now the CPU in here is like
Ah,
it's like the circuit is it's on the correct voltage, and it's it's tweaked and tuned. It doesn't get overheated, and it doesn't have too little energy, and it's just it's perfect. It's a perfectly running CPU. Like it's making the
that's a cool way to put it.
yeah, it's like making the correct assessments of everything, and with the knowledge that is available. So
Mm, mm.
the information that's available. So now everything else is kind of adjusting to it, and I one of the most recent changes that I just realized that has happened over the years, that I kind of stopped being like jumpy. Like I would
Okay. Hmm.
I wouldn't say that I was jumpy, but like if something kind of came at me, of course I'd flinch, but that's more and more disappearing as well. Like I don't my flinching is stopping. Yeah, because the body's learning, like everything is learning
Mm,
that
mm.
it's not going to be a problem. Like yeah,
There was a study they did on the startle reflex of
totally.
Tibetan meditators whilst
Huh.
they're meditating in open compassion, in open awareness,
Mm.
and they would fire a gun like right near their ear and measure their reactions. And the physiology, there would be that twitch, but
Yeah.
inside all the physiological changes, they would stay calm.
Fascinating.
So
Huh.
there wasn't the emotional reaction to it, like the autonomic response was
Yes.
there, but the rest of it
Mm.
wasn't there. And
Yeah.
so if you're a Buddha, I imagine you're in open awareness most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. By choice, probably. Most of it. Like it depends
Mm.
on what I pay attention to. Like,
Yeah.
but most of the time I pay attention to reality. I guess I could say to like a fellow yogi that
Mm.
like if the natural state, like how I kind of experience the natural state now rather than before perfection of 10th, is that it's non-negotiable. Could I say, like there's no obstacle. There's nothing in the way. There are no veils. There's no.
Mm.
It's never out of reach. I never have to like strain myself to sort of
Mm.
settle in it, or I never have to. Yeah, and if I don't do anything, that's where I am. So it's the baseline
Mm.
for my
Mm.
attention to kind of rest there. It's called the natural state because it's natural. Like that's the
You just like rest in it.
yeah.
How is compassion viewed through the eyes of a Buddha? When you view the world, when you view
Mm.
another fellow being,
Mm.
is there any way to describe that? Because obviously you get descriptions of the Buddha, and he's uh, just flowing with compassion,
Yeah,
etc., etc.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
How does it
radiating
feel?
golden
Mm.
rays. Like yes, yes. Um, mm, it's not too good to joke about that so much because it's actually it's it. I mean, I'm sure that all that imagery and stuff helped me. Like I'm sure it did. Like
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have been as keen on this if on doing this if it wasn't for all that imagination. So shouldn't be like too hard on it. But I'm just trying to have a little fun. But probably should be more careful with that. But anyway, I think compassion, like it's something that's, I think, as I said it like earlier on, that it was probably one of those things that led me to doing this at all. Like I wanted to get better, to be able to be more of use to other people. Even before the spiritual path and stuff, I would still like do this, seek out like dark places and stuff. And my friend, I had some horrible things happening in my life when I was younger too. And I was a pretty happy guy, but I would always, friends that were depressed and stuff, I would go to them and I'd ask them all sorts of questions. And I would almost actually, not only, I would actually wish that I myself would be suffering from depression at some point, just so I could relate to what it was like for them. That were, like I said, were so, I just couldn't understand it. And I wished that I could understand it so I could be of better use to them later on. So I had that interest, even from before the path, to apply myself to help out. But my sensitivity for what other people are going through has increased many, many times. Like it's
Oh, right.
incomparable. Yeah. Like it's not that I understand them. It's not that I understand what they're thinking or what they like better. I don't understand them better on that level, but energetically, like I can feel their energy, and I can relieve their energy. So that's the best part from here. Like I more read and feel people's energy than I hear what they're saying. Like if they're talking to me, I'll be paying more attention to what they feel like, actually, because I notice, like, if I connect with their energy and I kind of apply myself to it, and then I notice that they become more relaxed, maybe perhaps more confident, or more authentic, or something. They kind of get helped by it. So yeah, I noticed that. So
Yeah, that sounds fascinating to me, because I'm getting this sense that of my sensitivity increasing to other people. You feel their energies much more. Like as soon as they walk in the room or something, you're sort of aware of, in some sense, of their energetic presence, which gives you clues to how they're feeling. Maybe from my point of view, I wouldn't. I'm not at that point where I'm helping them with my energy so much, or not as much as you want to. So that's an interesting perspective there. Okay, so talking about emotions, as a Buddha, you still feel emotions, right? I think this can be a misconception that all of a sudden it's like an emotionally blank slate. You're this constant level of bliss permanently, and you're just this walking effulgent, radiating bliss. But there are clearly emotions and energy. Well, perhaps you can talk about the energetics as well. How do you experience the energetics? Because obviously that must change after perfection of 10th.
Yes, the energy. Yeah, that's pretty much all there is now. Yeah, much more than emotions. I don't know. Yeah, I get emotions, but I don't reflect a lot of those. Like I'll be upset with something that's if something's not right, or of course, yeah, just like like I tried to say before, like it's a very normal experience to be in this. So, however, there's no residue, or it's such a technical word, but like there's no aftermath of the emotion. Like you have the emotion and you live it out, or not live it out if you think it's not appropriate, or just like anybody will. But there's nothing left. Like when it's gone, it's just gone. It's,
yeah.
So it's very fluid in a way, and there's no reason to refrain from feeling emotion or something like that. I don't have to be afraid of my emotions or anything. The relationship with emotion, I guess you could say, have changed. But the emotions themselves are, I feel just like I always did, more or less.
But I'm getting the sense from the way you're talking, the way I've heard some of the others talking, is this, like you said that technical word, but no residue after. You can, but there's a sense of wisdom behind it. The energetics are there, but you can choose to act on it or not act on it, and in a sense, it's simply the display of the natural state coming into contact with others. And because you see things clearly, you can choose. You have that choice. Is there some accuracy to that?
Yes, sure. I think you don't need to be. No, I was gonna say that you don't need to purify all your Bhumis to have some distance to your emotions. You could work on that at any point, I think. And I think it's very good to do that, because we can't be completely controlled with emotions, but of emotions. Even I don't want to be that. Like, even if they're sort of, you could say that they are coming from the natural state. Sometimes, I'll hold it back because that's like a better thing to do socially. You have to be a human too, like a normal person, as much as possible. Or maybe you don't have to. I prefer to do that anyway. But there's the distance to emotions, so you can refrain from expressing them, and there's no residue. Yeah, you can just like get mad as hell, and then when you get it out, it's just over. That's it. And you go on with the next thing. That you were describing, like how these myths about like not feeling anger, for example. There is some truth to that, because, well, you feel anger, but it's not anger like over anger. It's not meta. You don't get the meta stuff. Like I don't get angry over. I mean, I think you could say that the emotions are just appropriate. You get appropriate emotion. Yeah. You don't get unnecessary, useless emotions. The emotions are there for a reason. Like being angry has a reason. You need to change something that's not good. So you get angry about it. Like, so you get some energy, some go to kind of, adjust. But like you see, emotions have social purpose. We're social beings, so
perhaps this is a good point to sort of as we're coming to the end. So you've perfected 11, 12, and 13, or 11, 13, and 12. How do you see post Buddhahood practices now? So we talk about realizing emptiness as the first stage of Buddhahood, and then we've talked about this idea of rainbow body, and we have this idea in the Sangha that rainbow body is perhaps the ultimate. But how do you see your personal practices post emptiness?
Definitely, being on this path for so long, I definitely want to open everything, obviously. I mean, I'm really into that. So because I see the benefit of it. I see benefit for myself, for those who are close to me, and for everybody that I meet. Probably for those that I don't meet too. But so I'm definitely in for going all the way. Just like I wrote in my first email to Baba, like, how do I get the rainbow body? Like that's still the question on my mind. Like, I'm definitely going for it, for sure. To clear out all the remaining karmas from all the remaining karma from my cells and from my physical body, from my nervous system, and from everything that I can touch. Like, yeah. I mean, I kind of view it like this, like all of us, like we're all stuck in this together on this boat. We're all in this boat, everybody. There's actually no separation between you and me. We have separate experiences, but in fact, we're just 2 points of view from the same whole. And this karma, I don't see it as personal. I think all karma is everybody's karma. I just happen to be in this, like my point of view, like happens to be right here. So this is what I can work with. I can work with first my non-physical mind that's closest to my attention, and the next step is my body, and after that is probably my family and my sangha and those close to me, like physically close to me, and it goes from there. So yeah, that's how I see the future for myself. That's what it is. That's what it's about.
Awesome.
Yeah. Everything's got to go, man. Maybe not in this kalpa, but I don't know when. But it's all got to go. Yeah, we're in it together. Yeah, we're doing it. So yeah.
Thank you. That was a really lovely conclusion there. A nice little summary of what it's all about. Thanks so much for this journey you've taken us on and described a clear vision from the beginning. Like I'm quite amazed that you sort of believe rainbow body from the start, and somewhere in the back of your mind you were definitely headstrong on getting to the Dzogchen path and Hatha yoga. Then some very clear obstacles you had to face and some difficult times, which I think just really brings it down to earth, grounds this story for people, makes it much more real. And your descriptions of what emptiness is like post purification practice, very clear and very real for everyone. So thanks very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. Very nice to get to know you through this process.
That's very kind. My pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for this. Yes. Yeah, talk to you again soon.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Robert.
Yes, thank you.